Alex Marlow is a Breitbart News Network editor-in-chief. He's the host of Breitbart News Daily and now best-selling author of a brand new book called Breaking Biden, exposing the hidden forces and secret money machine behind Joe Biden, his family, and his administration. It's a bizarre tale of corruption. And Alex warns if we're not careful, Joe Biden could be elected again next year. Please welcome to our show for the first time, Alex Marlow. It's great having you here.
My pleasure.
The book, Breaking Biden. In it, you give us a history that most of us really have never heard about. Joe Biden going all the way back to his early days in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and his family. When you researched this book, was there one sort of theme that kind of got your attention and kept it?
Yeah, and this is exactly the right place to start. When I undertook this project, which was over a year of research, I was lucky enough to team with 5 incredible researchers who'd all worked on #1 best-selling books for my friend Peter Schweitzer, who I know has been on with you.
Yeah, great guy.
The standard bearer for our industry for research. And I had a hypothesis, and that was that we'd gotten Joe Biden all wrong. That we get fixated on him bumbling up the stairs. He's confusing his wife and his sister. He's calling his sister the love of his life. Like, it's all this crazy stuff that he does. His hair plugs. Why is his hair thicker now than when he was in his 40s? It's very odd. And it is odd. Yeah. I'm not saying it's not. But we get fixated on that. And in the meantime, he's ascending the ranks. He's becoming senator for 30 years, has a disgraceful record. He keeps getting reelected. He becomes vice president. Why would Barack Obama, who could have chosen anyone, chose Joe? And then he somehow times it just perfect so the stars align for him to be president. This all can't be a coincidence in this country. He was working the system because he'd built it himself. Now, I'm not saying he's an evil genius. I'm not going that far. But I am saying that over 50 years in Washington, he has used his Rolodex and more intellect than we give him credit for to be able to craft a system that he could summit. And now he's at the top. And I'm afraid, given the powerful people he surrounds himself with, given the level of donor class billions that are at his disposal, Jeffrey Katzenberg, one of the biggest moguls in Hollywood, saying he'll give Joe whatever he needs. He could win again if we're not careful and if we don't start taking him seriously. And that was what I set out to prove in the book. And I think I did that with example after example.
Well, what I was amazed by, the footnotes alone, you talk about the research, 1,600 footnotes in this book.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to challenge what you're saying in the book, they're going to have to wade through a whole lot of specific references in which you cite chapter and verse of what you're saying. And I don't think many people have done that level of research on Joe Biden and or his family.
If you think you know Joe Biden, as I thought I did before I started researching him, we know nothing about Joe Biden. The average person does not know the very beginning of the level of corruption and his destructive policies. We've decided to pawn him off as some sort of a puppet or something. He's not. He's the puppeteer more than anyone else. Joe is at the top, and we need to start taking him as not the symptom, but the actual problem. And in order to prove that, I had to bring the receipts. So this is why the establishment media is trying to ignore this book, even though somehow the New York Times let it on their bestseller list, which I have no idea why they did that. They're shooting.
It must be selling great, because when they allow a book like that they can't stand the content of to actually get on the list, it is overwhelming that they can't ignore it.
That's the point. And so they have to ignore it because all the receipts are in there. Let's talk about any of our favorite Bidens. How about James Biden? Okay, James has been in the news quite a bit because we saw that transfer. James, one of the most interesting men in the world.
He's the one that got the $200,000 check that James Comer from Congress has revealed. He showed us the picture of it. And, you know, one of the questions is, did anybody pay tax on that loan?
Well, we don't know yet, and hopefully all of this will come out. And this is one of the great things that Comer is working on. But James, we're lucky that James is in this country if you believe the James and Joe Biden narrative. James started off as a humble nightclub owner. It's quite a job to own a nightclub, and it's never before been used to launder money or anything like that. It's the salt of the earth, nightclub owners. So James then somehow got into the healthcare business, as we learned. And he all of a sudden has this AmeriCorps company. Sure, the company went bankrupt and there was a lot of accusations of white collar crime. And James did lend himself $500,000 and pay himself a six-figure salary and all that stuff. But you know what? He was trying. He was trying to provide health care. And then in his spare time, he had become an international businessman, which is really cool because who knew a guy who knew nightclubs and knew healthcare could also manage to get 100,000 homes built, not in the United States, in Iraq. It's just totally coincidental that this is how James has lived his life. And we're all supposed to act like this is normal. Governor, this is absolutely not normal that James Biden is nightclub owner, helping finance Joe's campaigns. He's running a healthcare company, and now he's doing deals in Iraq. And it's not just Iraq. He's doing them in Costa Rica. He's building a golf course there. He's doing them in Mozambique. I was joking with my friend Peter Schweitzer, who's done even more research on this than I have maybe. Peter says he's done deals in Costa Rica, Mozambique, and elsewhere. Even Peter, the greatest researcher in the world, goes, okay, I'm out. That's enough. That's enough. Mozambique, Iraq. Have we seen enough from James Biden? Apparently not, because Americans don't know these stories. And I want to share them with them because these are the people who are in charge, and they're going to stay in charge if we're not careful.
I wanted to get into the border situation because a lot of people look at this, millions, literally millions of people coming across the southern border, basically being waved in, and people think, well, it's a political move. You have stated in this book that it's really all about big business and what it's doing to the country's economy. What's going on at the border, and why is Joe having sort of no concern whatsoever?
Again, just like everything else with Joe Biden, there's a design to it. The design starts with the fact that Democrats are not having enough children. And some of those children, Governor, as you might know, if they're born, they might get sucked into the world of right-wing YouTube and right-wing talk radio, and they might lose their values where they were raised on the left, and they start becoming conservative. So the Democrats need to replenish their stores of voters. And so they do this by importing people. Now, we even have illegal aliens voting in local elections. You better believe if Democrats have enough power nationally, they would love for that to happen at a national level. But at a minimum, those families are going to raise kids who are going to, at least the first generation, most likely to be Democrats. All the polling backs that up, whether it be the fact that there's more government welfare, et cetera, which poor people get hooked on. But there's also this element that we're not great about on the right, is that the Democrats broadcast in Spanish more often, which I'm critical of the right about this. We don't get our message out to a lot of those new people. But the bottom line is all those voters are undocumented Democrats coming across. So that's number one. But the more nefarious reason that I think is really gross is to benefit the corporate establishment that now favors the Democrat Party. One of the great misnomers in this country right now is that big business is Republican.
No, it's not.
Big business doesn't like change. They like the status quo. And the status quo is mostly the Democrat establishment and a little bit of the Republican establishment, which I know you have strong words for them too, Governor. Mm-hmm. So what's going on that Joe Biden sees is that if you import new workers, they drive down the wages of Americans. That lowers the bottom line for corporations. And once the bottom line is lowered, their stock can go up, their prices go down. All of it helps the corporate elite who are the funders of Joe Biden's whole ecosystem. So he knows he's not just importing a new generation of Democrats, he is doing a favor to corporate America. And this is one of the scariest things, and why it took an outsider like Donald Trump to come in and say, we're going to build the wall, okay? It's going to be a big, beautiful wall, okay? Mexico's going to pay for it. And he didn't get far enough along, but God willing, he'll be able to finish the job next time around, or whoever is the Republican nominee if something crazy happens. But this is why Joe Biden went to work on day one to remove all of the good that Trump had done, with not just not building the border wall, but the Northern Triangle agreements, remain in Mexico, and eventually Title 42. All of these things were used to keep some sense of law and order at our border. That is a disaster for the Democrats. Finally now, there's so many illegal aliens all over the country that are causing enough damage. Some Democrat cities are going, hey, Joe, probably it's too much. Can we do something, please? It's finally they're crying uncle, which is good, but there's a reason why it took 3 years for that to happen.
Do you think something is going to come out of the congressional investigations? I mean, there are serious people who are conducting them. Yeah. I have a great confidence in James Comer. I love Jim Jordan and what he's doing with the Judiciary Committee, but I still wonder, Will the media ever get interested enough to cover it? Because I don't think that just having Republicans in Congress is going to move the needle.
Yeah, it's a two-part answer. And I think the first part is yes. I think we're already seeing stuff. For people like me and Peter who have investigative teams and the good folks I work with day to day at Breitbart, we can't get those dollar figures. We don't get subpoena power to get bank records. So when you start seeing, specifically $200,000 wire going from AmeriCorps to James, $200,000 check to Joe, that's huge, because I can't get that sort of stuff if I research the rest of my life. It doesn't matter if the committee turns up anything. We have enough on the Bidens to vote them out as people. If we know the true story, if people read Breaking Biden and spread the word about it, I think we have enough that people will understand that we cannot tolerate this level of corruption at the highest echelons of America.
Well,
we will get fired up.
Let's hope that that happens. And I hope one of the ways that this starts happening is reading this book, Breaking Biden. Alex, it is a phenomenal work and an incredible gift to the truth. And I hope that people will get it, Breaking Biden. It is in bookstores now, and we even can help you get your own copy, because if you head over to Huckabee.tv, we will find you links to Alex on social media as well as Breitbart News and how to get this book. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I hope you will now. The button is just below this video, and there's a little bell next to it. If you click on those, YouTube will reluctantly start letting you know when we've got a new video uploaded.